Welcome back to Zeerust and our continued coverage of the second round of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series, brought to you by N1 4x4 Toyota and Cruiser, your four-wheel drive experts in association with Pirelli. Now, round number one gave us one of the biggest bike and quad entries the Africa Off-Road Championship Race Series has ever seen. Round number two was even bigger. So the word is getting out there and the guys want to come and be part of it. Prize giving was all about the lineup to start things off before everyone rolled forward and got ready to go out and go racing and get dirty.
Hi, my name is Peter Karam. We are at Zeerust race today, and yes, I just want to thank Roost for always helping me, and when I need parts, sending it so fast to me. And yes, we're gonna have a nice race today.
Hi, my name is Adam Frith. I ride a Raptor 700, number 29, and thank you to my sponsor, Markham Services.
Hallo, mijn naam is Marnus Kraft. Ik kom van Vryburg. Ik ry 'n CRF 150 en ek wil net vir my sponsor sê baie dankie aan my pa.
Hello, I'm Francois Bennett. We're here at Zeerust today. It's an exciting race. We're excited for it. I'm from Kempton Park and I'm racing senior quad today.
Hi, I'm Gavin Breckel from Stroke Mining. Hail from Clarksdorp, and my first time out here in Zeerust. Looking forward to see what the race is like. I see lots of thorns and trees, so it's going to be an interesting race.
Okay, this vehicle we use that's the bush ambulance. We follow the juniors into the field, make sure they're okay, and if there's any casualties that we can immediately attend to them medically. So we're all over the show, checking, making sure everything is correct.
Cool to catch up with some of our riders as well as our medics. And big thanks and high five to those guys for making sure our boys, girls, mothers, fathers, sisters and brothers keep riding out and driving out safe. Francois Bennett on the J700. He was going to be a massive threat in the quads, but it's nice to see a couple of riders like Frith making the big step up onto the 700 as well to do the chase down. Pierre Joubert going off the landing strip. So these guys go out into the veld at full speed this time around, and a real nice feature. Some great shots coming in from our camera crew as well, as telling us exactly how the story was going to be going. P.E. Kutza starting to bring home consistent top threes in the Africa Off-Road Pirelli and N1 4x4 Championship, and Aidan Frith is going to be the man nipping at his heels. Remember, Frith was on a small Honda last season. This time he moves up to the big 700cc Raptor. You can see he's starting to grow into it and really figure out how things run. Venot Delport, Peter Karam and Johan Lubber. Now watch out for Delport, because this is his first time stepping onto the track's 500cc KTM, courtesy of Harry Grobler. Harry unfortunately out with a knee injury, and Venot getting the job done, stepping off his normal 250cc Yamaha, and he was going to be a massive threat in this kind of terrain. Clear air as well, he pulled the whole shot. Bernard van Motte and Johan Marais, just two riders clicking through the gearbox, and what a cool sight. Takes you back to the 1990s when we used to start on airstrips and go firing down, and everyone was trying to squeeze sometimes up to 300 riders through one farm gate. Classic racing. Jean-Louis Devet, JJ Brits and Peter Ferry. And horsepower would be ruling the roost as well, coming off the start line. Everyone wanted to land on the dirt in front, so it was all elbows up to try and flick a little bit of roost into your competition's eyes. Some small roost, but most of the day was going to be all about bush riding, sand and mud. Dylan Landsberg, Henry Rutt and Eben Fenter were the next riders to do the big chase down. And what we tend to do coming off the start line is we mix up a couple of the categories. So you'll sometimes see the open category mixed up with the 200s and then the age category guys a little bit further down. This is based on your rankings coming out the previous races. Johan Gray and Gav Breckel, both on very powerful bikes. Johan Gray on the Trax KTM 500. Breckel also going to be running some big horsepower on his number 18 bike, but Johan Gray holding nothing back off the line. Big Gav Breckel, he's been really improving. Looks like he's finally made that move off his old Suzuki onto a KTM, treating himself to some new flash gear for 2018. Davy Duper and JP Skippers would start doing the chase down next, as we start going to some of the smaller category bikes. There's Big Grey chasing down the other side of the fence. Keith Smith was doing everything in his power to smash his way through his gearbox on the number 7 KTM, as Eloise van der Linden, the first of the ladies to come off the start line queue. She'd be watching over her shoulder pretty soon, though, as Zandra Gray and Samantha Vannie Kirk were joined at the hip coming off the start line. Gray, though, with a little bit of a horsepower advantage, now making the step up onto the big KTM. But they were also going to be in a war, because we saw on our start line queue that Tay Perry was in the lineup today, and she will hold nothing back in her chase to be top woman and make a couple of the guys feel pretty bad about themselves as well. She can run top 10s. Jan Vermeulen and Christian Steenman on the 28 and 360 head on out into the bush. A couple of riders were clever enough to try and wear their arm guards like we see them racing in the desert, and that's because thorns were definitely going to be the order of the day. If you were going to be running on the inside lines in the corners, you were going to be ripping your shirt and your arms to pieces. Johan Buerter and Enrico Moller off out into the terrain. Please note as well, rain is not a bad thing in these kind of situations. We know that the area around Zeerust is a very nice sandy kind of mix-up of dirt, which means when it gets rained on, there is just tons and tons of traction. Probably some of the best riding conditions ever. And you'll notice as well, the sun is not blazing in the sky, meaning that it's not going to be too wild and hot. Father and daughter pairing, Hein Perry and Tay Perry, set off on the 608 and 208 respectively. Both extremely strong riders. Hein Perry will be chasing down a top result in the Masters, and watch out for Tay Perry to climb the ladder. She is predicted to be our top lady on the day. Rob Pollock and Johan Grove. Rob Pollock had a big injury, one of our Botswana riders, at the end of last season. So cool to see Pollock back on point as he heads on out there to start his campaign for 2018. Slowly but surely, everyone getting out onto the track, firing down the tarmac before they make their way onto the dirt. Anton Martin and Tyler January just showing us how deep the field is here. Donovan Mangle and Dave Perry putting on a show for the crowd that line up, and the pits were right on the tarmac. A very, very good decision from our illustrious leaders here that run the Africa Off-Road Championship Race Series. They knew it was going to be a muddy day, so the riders and the drivers would at least have a dry pit. Franz Koenig and Theo Barwise. Theo, one of the most stylish riders out there, and he would definitely be looking for that junior-senior win once again. Anno Dietrich and Crystal van der Meulen, showing us that this was actually our biggest lady entry over the last 2 seasons on the two-wheel side of things. So that's just great to see that kind of development coming into the sport. Riders still settling themselves in at this stage. The first part of the track was nice and easy, kept them close to the landing strip before they went heading off out into the bush. Enders White on the 81, no one to play with. On one of the older model 2-stroke Hondas. Haven't seen those for quite a while. They stopped that production in the early 2000s. Ethan John Walker in the junior category. And Joubert White in the juniors as well. So the smaller category and junior machines were starting to make their way out onto the circuit, meaning we were close to filling up our boots and getting all riders and quads out onto the circuit. Derek Karen this time around, younger brother of Peter Karen, both riding out of Roos KTM, and Manus Kraft in the juniors, making up some of our last riders to hit the dirt. You'll notice with our junior category races, we have tagged this before in previous shows. All of our junior categories wear the neon vests so that the riders coming up behind them will know that they are slightly slower riders, not because of them being any slower in talent, but the juniors ride smaller capacity bikes and simply cannot run the same speed as the seniors. Our last marshal heads on out there, and that means we are at the end of our start line queue. Good luck to our marshal, making sure that everyone runs clean on lap number 1. Out on track, it was going to be all about Pierre Joubert trying to stay clean. He was clear for now with no one in front. Coming back from his mechanical problems, he was definitely on for the win at round number 1. Hopefully he can hang on this time around. Bernard Delport on the Trax KTM 500, once again courtesy of Harry Krobler. He was in the mix, running ahead of Peter Karam. Karam was going to be going after a 200cc win, staying ahead of Francois Bennett. So Bennett was inside of a top 5 overall, looking to close things down on Pierre Joubert. Johan Lubber, he'd also started in some of the early rows as well. But check out P.E. Kotze. absolutely roosted to pieces. And you do not want to be following a quad through a mud bog. You will get covered. Bonner van Marker splashing his way through. Dylan Landsberg and Aidan Frith, unfortunately, getting sent back. He's going to really have to charge now as he's stuck behind a couple of bonies. Brits was there with some clear air, just running outside of the top 5. You'll see most of the riders do run roll-offs or tear-offs. Hopefully they're all roll-offs nowadays. Hendrik Rutt, the fastest Suzuki out there. He was definitely on point for a good run, staying ahead of Gavin Breckel for now. But Breckel does look like he's in good form in this kind of terrain. Davy Duper working the smoker. And those two-strokes don't like to run cold. So when they get a little bit of mud in them, they are sometimes prone to a bit of a misfire. If it was me, I would just take a wide line, lean back, put it on the back wheel through this, and surf your way through. JP Skipper's making some nice shapes. Too slow can sometimes absolutely cover the bike and rider in roost, and it's wet foot racing from now on. Tay Perry, she's now plying the field. She'll want to make a nice pass outside line, and plenty of experience for Tay Perry on the big KTM. Pierre van der Meulen, you can hear that's a big dog 450 Yamaha that he's running there. And Hein Perry, try as he might, the kid is too fast. That's dad of Tay Perry, losing a little bit of pace in the early running. Rob Pollock, the man from Botswana, much more used to sand racing. Mud, it will be a very foreign experience for him. Frans Koenig and Tyler January getting wild through the mud bog, and Samantha Van Kirk as well. Absolutely covered. That nice fresh Alpine Star kit in the bin will never come clean again. Jacques Leroux just giving it a nice little bounce. Sometimes they do that just to raise the front end above the mud bog, because as more riders go through, that invisible hole underneath the puddle does get deeper. Theo Barwise charging nicely, and you'll start seeing the juniors. You see that? That hole is getting deep, and Manus Croft very nearly went out the front door. OTB over the bars. Dave Perry doing a nice job to stay ahead of Arnold Dietrich on the 707. Dietrich doing just enough to keep that front end high. What happens there is the guys are a little rolling off the gas as they go into the puddle, and that causes more problems than it's worth. Xandra Gray, also, she does like the dust and dry. Not a proficient mud rider as yet. Johan Grove also just trying to wipe off his kit on some of the shrubbery and almost using our cameraman as traction as they try and figure out how to get the traction down through the mud. Our first lady off, Eloise van der Linden, currently just clinging on to a top 5 position in the ladies category. Some of our later entries, Pierre White Jr. and Ethan Ferreira charging hard. Remember, those were some of the last guys to come out. Right next to the train tracks at about the halfway marker of lap number 1. We'll see you after the break, if we can spot the guys through the mud, that is.